Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, is no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision. Trendsetter.
Hello, and welcome to another podcast of Carnivore Evolution. Today we have Mark Ennis with us. I'm Victoria Olson, and we're going to straighten you all out about protein as an energy source and why you shouldn't do it.
Yes, 100%.
Yes,
Controversial topic.
we're going to insert a little video here about protein as an energy source, and people on the other side of the fence who are uninformed, in our opinion, and in science's opinion. So we'll insert that here and then we'll proceed.
Let's go.
Okay?
I'm sorry, but your body does not need carbohydrates to stay alive. Do you know what your body needs? Glucose. And do you know where you can get glucose from? From the meat you eat. And that's how you should get it.
So I need Butter's help today to explain to you what's going on here. Alright, Butter? The process mentioned here where we utilise protein as an energy source is called gluconeogenesis. And we're going to break down whether it's a good option for fat loss. Poor carbs though can't defend themselves, so before we go into protein as energy, here's what carbs are good for. Quick, easy energy source. The carb fibre aids in digestion and supports gut health and maintaining your sanity. And now that we have that out of the way, if you need to hear more reasons to eat carbs while trying to lose weight without fear-mongering food, and I suggest dropping me a follow. Now for those who don't know what gluconeogenesis is, it's the process of using protein to form glucose, which then allows our bodies to use it as energy. It is worth noting that it is a very slow process, very energy intensive, and if you don't have a high protein rich diet, you will end up breaking down muscle tissue. Key takeaway that if fat loss is your goal, eat a little less calories from food, keep protein intake to 1.82 grams per kg of body weight, and enjoy your carbs. If anyone tells you you're wrong, tell them to give me a butter.
That little video is very controversial. And I think what we need to say to address that is protein, yes, protein can be used as an energy source, but we should not, because what it's doing is depleting your muscles and storing up fat. So when you hear about a bodybuilder bulking up and he's eating a lot of protein, a lot of chicken usually, and what he's doing is actually building up fat to bulk up. And that is unfortunate because it's not truly muscle. He may be getting some scar tissue from working out on a regular basis and building scar tissue for bulking, physical bulking. But the weight he's gaining or she is gaining is from fat, because while the liver can process protein for energy, the way it's doing it is to break down your muscle tissue and break down the protein as well. Now, it will break down dietary protein first, and you're going to use that. And then what it doesn't use right away is going to store as glycogen. And if you get to a point where you don't get enough protein for energy and you're not getting carbohydrates, we're assuming no carbohydrates because we are talking about the carnivore diet here or a low carb diet. It's going to break down muscle tissue in your body. And this is why many people fail on the carnivore diet, because they think, oh, I'm only going to eat protein, and they're gaining fat. And also, if they get to a point where they're fasting a lot, fasting will do this too. Their liver is looking to protein because it must. The sequence of events for getting energy is carbohydrates, protein, and then fat. And the reason on a ketogenic diet that we feed ourselves some extra fat is so the liver looks around and says, oh, there's fat. I can use that as well. And we want the liver to use fat because then it will use both dietary fat and body fat. And that is how we lose weight on a ketogenic diet. We're using up our fat stores. First, we'll use all our glycogen stores, and we stop the carbohydrates and eat protein and fat, and it will turn to the fat if fat is in abundance
Mm-hmm.
over the protein. If protein is in abundance, we're using the protein instead, and the fat is also getting stored.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to get a balance. And this is why we often recommend that people use a macro for their carnivore or ketogenic diet. So they are ensuring themselves that they're getting sufficient fat to make the ketogenic process happen to create ketones.
Mm-hmm.
Because our brain and our body want two things for energy. They want glucose and they want ketones. And
Mm-hmm.
if we can bypass the glucose by eliminating, well, it will make glucose eventually, but if we bypass that by eliminating the carbohydrates and not using protein as an energy source, then we will use the ketones that are stored for our brain. And it's really actually almost a superior way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
because you get the clarity of mind on the ketogenic diets that you don't get if you're eating carbs. So that in a nutshell is how it works. You can, yes, you can use protein for energy, but you don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just going to upset the balance of a lot of things in your body. Amino acids will be used for glycogen, and you can use those elsewhere to build muscle tissue. And that's what you want to do throughout your life, is build muscle tissue. You don't want to tear it down. And
Exactly.
that's the way it should work. So
Yeah,
Mark, what do you think about that?
great answer, Victoria. I agree with everything you said. Yeah, I'll just add in like this. When we look at our energy sources, we only have two valuable energy sources that come in from our macronutrients. They're either carbohydrates or they're fats. Now, with carbohydrates, they run out very, very quickly. So this is why we get these spikes. We get these spikes crashes, like you run out of energy, you have to top up. And then when you top up and you run out, you have to keep on doing it over and over and over again. When you become fat adapted, you're, like Victoria said, you're running off your own body fats. Now, when we look at the carnivore diet, a lot of people that are doing it nowadays are doing it wrong, because they're thinking that it's another form of Atkins. We just need to go high protein and that's going to get you results. Yes, it will get you results, but you're going to be absolutely miserable doing it. Miserable. You're not going to feel good. Like you look at when I did my bodybuilding competition 2 years ago, a lot of bodybuilders that were going into the show, they were like zombies, because they were only just feeding themselves protein and some vegetables, and they were absolutely like miserable. That is not the way to get energy, guys. It's that simple. When we look at the carnivore diet, it's very, very important that you must add fat into the diet. I know there's an awful lot of people out there that are saying, like, listen, you need to be scared of fat. It's too many calories. People will talk about cholesterol, all that rubbish, but nobody talks about the benefits. You can get amazing energy from eating fats. Amazing energy. You can reduce inflammation. You're gonna feel so much better. You're gonna have sustained energy throughout the whole day. So this is the argument we're having here today, is that if you are doing a carnivore diet or even a keto diet, it's not about a high protein diet. If anything, it's a high fat diet. That's where it's going to come down to. So if you're looking at your macros and you're breaking it down into percentages, the average person is probably going to be eating around 65% fat a day, probably 70% fat a day, and around 30% protein. That's how high it's going to be. So you just need to make sure that when you buy your meats, we're not going towards the lean sources. We're going towards the sources that have the fattiest cuts. So we're not going after like the lean steak or sirloin steak. We're going after steaks that are like high in fat, like ribeye, tenderloin. When you're buying your ground beef, don't be afraid of like the high percentage. Instead of buying lean mince, buy mince that has a high percentage of fat in it. Because if you replace that with carbohydrates, you're going to notice very, very quickly, wow, my energy levels haven't changed. My results in the gym have not changed. Here's the problem with people when they talk about carnivore. They talk a lot about glycogen. They talk a lot about water retention. So they say like, okay, the minute you go on carnivore, the minute you go on keto, you're gonna get this flat look in your muscles. But we have to understand that's stored glycogen. That's water retention. That's water retention the body does not need. We don't need that. We don't need to be walking around with water retention. We don't need to be walking around with this excess fluid in the body, because this is what's leading to many, many problems in the world today, like arthritis. People are suffering with pain on a regular basis. You know what I mean? This is inflammation, guys. This is what we have to
Exactly.
understand. Where does that inflammation come from?
Mhm.
Does it come from fats? No. Okay? It doesn't come from fats. It does not come from amino acids, proteins. Okay? When we look at blood sugar, you might get a little bit of a spike with blood sugar, but you're not going to get anywhere near the spikes you're going to get from carbohydrates. Now, when it comes to carbohydrates, it doesn't matter whether you're eating refined carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. It doesn't matter. Even fruits, they all do the exact same thing. They all break down to sugar. These are all sugar, guys. Okay? What we've been told about energy is wrong. It's complete and utter false. Your body needs glucose. That's 100% correct. Nobody's ever going to deny that. But the problem is, we do not need to get it in the diet. Your brain does not need glucose coming from carbohydrates. Your brain needs fats. Exactly what Victoria said. We run off ketones. When you put your body through this, when you become fat adapted, you're going to notice, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you're going to notice that nothing changes. If anything, your life just improves. So what do you think, Victoria?
Well, I agree with you. And ketosis is what we want. This is, I believe, the way of the future. We're going to come to understand as I mean, worldwide, that ketones are what we really need to run our body off of. Now, there's a new movement out of Harvard, metabolic psychiatry, where they are applying
Mm-hmm.
the fact that um, carbohydrates are causing conditions, mental conditions, issues like
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and depression,
Mm-hmm.
and can
Mm-hmm.
even impact conditions like schizophrenia.
Yep.
And turning to ketosis helps to control these situations. It's certainly true for me. I was depressed and had anxiety. I was on medication for many years and had talk therapy for it too. 6 months into the carnivore diet, I stopped my medications, and I'm not that way at all anymore. I've really
Mm-hmm.
lost that. To me,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a strange feeling to feel anxious or concerned or depressed. I no longer feel that way. So we really need to promote the concept that ketogenesis happens when we're eating fat. The ketogenic diet works on a fat basis to supply us with the energy we need in the form of ketones, which the
Exactly.
brain may convert in part to glucose.
Yeah.
But let the brain do it, let the liver do it. Don't you do it. Don't eat the carbohydrates, and don't force feed yourself protein because you think that's what the carnivore diet is, or the
Hundred
ketogenic diet.
percent. 100. And you made a very, very good point about mental health. Like, there's an awful lot of people suffering with mental health issues at the moment, and it's this continuous circle that people just don't understand what's going on. They're blaming lifestyle, they're blaming like family issues, they're blaming their whole
Mhm.
life. And I'm not going to argue with that. You probably have a hard life. You probably had a hard childhood, or you broke up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and that can all
Mhm.
cause mental health issues. But I firmly believe that what you can control is what you should always control. And the one thing that you will always be able to control, no matter what situation you're in, no matter how hard life hits you, is you're able to control the food that goes into your body. Now, if you're feeding yourself crap and you're eating the complex carbohydrates, you're eating the healthy carbohydrates, but you're still not feeling good, you still have mental health issues. This is what's happening. You guys are running towards the doctor. You're getting the medication, but this is actually causing more problems because you're actually giving the body more. You're retaining more water. You're giving the body more excuses to retain inflammation. So you're not actually decreasing the inflammation. You're just basically putting a band-aid on it. You're not fixing the problem at all. Whereas if you look at the diet and say, right, okay, what's causing these problems? Why am I feeling down? Why am I feeling like crap? This is when we have to look at the diet. This is where we have to look at, okay, carbohydrates are stored in sugar. Does my brain need sugar? Does it have an impact on my mental health? Yes, it does. So the minute we get rid of that and we give the body and especially the brain the fats it needs, you're going to thrive on it. You're going to absolutely thrive on it. They did a study. I think you've seen this on YouTube, Victoria. They did this study on 2 rats. Did you see that study?
No, not familiar with that.
Okay. So what happened
Um,
was they fed one rat just basically crap, just sugars, processed food, and the other rat was fed just fats, and they put them into this cage. Within 30 minutes, the rat that was eating processed food, he couldn't run anymore, and he was running into the cage left, right, and center. His brain had gone. Whereas the other rat, he could go for literally nearly 2 or 3 hours. And when we look at what's going on now, dementia is a big thing now for especially people as they get older. They're losing their minds. And we have to understand, okay, hang on a second. What's causing the problems? Are we actually helping these people by bringing them into the hospitals and giving them medication and constantly feeding their problems and making their problems worse? Or do we look at it and say, right, okay, no, hang on a second. We need to stop feeding you guys crap and start giving your body and your brain the nutrients it needs to thrive on.
Yes, I agree. That has to be addressed seriously. They call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there are similar symptoms to diabetes. And it's likely that someone with Alzheimer's has type 2 diabetes or is very close to it. So that cannot be denied. But why modern medicine is not addressing diet, and especially carbohydrates and seed oils,
Mm-hmm.
as the perpetrators of these illnesses that are so mysterious that they can't seem to find a cure for them when it's right there in front of their noses.
And what do you say? Because I actually put up a video of this, I think, a few days ago. You've probably seen it. She was a doctor, and she said out straight that type 2 diabetes has absolutely nothing to do with the diet and has absolutely nothing to do with sugar.
Oh, that's unfortunate because we've seen it time and time and time again, and many patients who are seeing conventional physicians get dietary control as part of their diabetes management. Dietary control has a great impact and can lower the amount of medications that they get put on, like metformin and insulin. But modern medicine doesn't seem to like that idea. They want to promote taking drugs
Mm-hmm.
thanks to big pharma pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they get pressure from big pharma. I've spoken to my physicians who are frustrated by that and will actually leave a practice because a large company has taken over. That's certainly the case in the United States, where big companies like United Healthcare come and take over a medical practice and they run everything for you. Oh, they make everything go so smoothly. But what they're also doing is pressuring those doctors to prescribe. And they make record of patients who refuse those prescriptions and put them on kind of a blacklist to say that they are a higher risk because they refuse to take their statins or their metformin. And that is a totally fabricated scenario where you're being controlled to take big pharma medications. And
I
it's
mean,
totally
the question is going to be always the same, that if you're on medication, say for 6 months to a year, the system is wrong. Period.
Yeah, it should be that way. And it used to be that way. Try this for a while, we'll see what happens. But now it's for a lifetime. You're put on
Yeah,
a medication forever.
exactly.
And there's
So
no option out. Yeah.
exactly. So it's like, where's the get out clause? Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
there is
okay,
none.
if I'm going to be on the medications, okay, that's no problem. I'm probably going to be on them for a couple of weeks or a week or two, but how do I get off them?
Yeah.
And
They don't have an answer for that.
that's the big issue we're having now with type 2 diabetes, is that nobody has the cure, but now they've brought out this drug, this injection. They're saying, right, okay, you take this for the rest of your life. The rest of your life.
Gosh, yeah.
It's scary when you think about it. Like
It's awful.
you have
Yeah.
type 2 diabetes, so you have to inject yourself for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Well, you're just
just
sending subscription money to Big
yeah,
Pharma.
yeah. It's like, when do we get to the point where we need to ask more questions, and we need to get to the point where we say to ourselves, are we being lied to? Because that's what's happening at the moment. I hear every day people talk about they're sick, they're struggling with their injuries, they're walking around with arthritis,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
mental health issues going through the roof, but you don't hear anything about the right protocol. Okay,
No.
first of all, like, what are you doing? What are you doing yourself to try and correct that problem? And nobody's doing it. Everybody will say, "Oh, but I'm eating very, very healthy." But we all know, well, we certainly know that
Yeah.
healthy is not what we consider healthy.
No,
So
it's a whole different concept.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, because like you, I would have considered like fruit, honey, oats, sweet
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, rice, all that kind of stuff.
Complex carbohydrates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would eat a lot of that. I would have a lot of grains, a lot of vegetables. And I know an
Mm-hmm.
awful lot of people in the carnivore community that pretty much the last thing that comes off the list is the vegetables. They just can't let them go because
Yeah.
we think that they contain so much nutrients. They're good for us. Your body needs them. Eventually you're going to turn vegan. And when you turn vegan, you're going to be the healthiest person in the world. But now from the research that we've done into this, it's just complete and utter rubbish.
Yes, we've seen so many people come back from being vegan because it just does not support life.
No.
Unless you're taking even if you're taking B12 and all the multiple B vitamins to support life, it's just not going to work for you. You're going to lose muscle tissue.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to yes, you'll lose weight, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
losing fat weight. You're
Mm-hmm.
losing muscle tissue, and that
Mm-hmm.
is a dangerous situation because your heart is a muscle.
Absolutely.
It's not very good.
100%.
It's just not going to support you in
Yeah.
life.
And that's a good point, because you can always notice the difference between a vegan and someone who lives a carnivore lifestyle. First of all, you can see that the person on the carnivore looks a lot healthier. They haven't lost any muscle mass. They just look so much better. Whereas when you look at most vegans, they're very, very skinny, but they have this skinny fat.
Yes, the skinny fat
They
issue.
don't look
Yep.
that healthy. And that's what we're seeing now in the world that's going on with the Ozempic, is that we're seeing so
Mm.
many people, they're losing so much weight. They look amazing, but they're losing so much muscle mass. And
Yes, they are.
you made a very, very good point at the start of this podcast about muscle mass, about how important it is that it's important that we do not lose it. And it's important we actually hold on to it, because when we lose muscle mass, it will have a direct impact on hunger. So if you guys are listening right now and you're like, okay, but I struggle with food knives, I struggle with cravings, I have to go on the Ozempic to get rid of those food cravings. What's happening is you're not actually fixing the problem, because when you come off that Ozempic, not only are you going to put that weight back on very, very quickly, but that hunger is going to come back, because you haven't fixed the problem whatsoever. Because
Absolutely true.
losing muscle mass is going to have a direct impact on hunger going forward.
Yep.
And so it's just this constant circle of trying to look for the most optimal diet. And that's what I think people need to get away from. I think people need to get away from this diet culture and just eat the food that we were meant to eat in the first place. Like this, people think that this carnivore diet is a fad. How can it be a fad? We've been eating this way for such a long time. We're just eating the food that we were meant to be in the first place. I mean, the way I see it is we're next to a lion. What does a lion do? A lion just eats meat. That's all he does. When you
And they're
look at,
fat.
yeah, and when you look at a lion doesn't go out and tracks his macros or tracks his calories, or he has to run every single day to lose weight. When a lion is hungry, it will go out and hunt its prey, kill it, eat it, sleep and rest. That's it. That's it. And these animals, they never put on weight. You know what I mean? And we're probably as close to a lion. So if we're all animals, so if that's the case, why are we going through this diet culture? Why do we have to track our calories? Why do we have to track our macros? Why do we have to eat a lot of carbohydrates? We don't see lions going around. You don't see a lion going down and saying, right, okay, I need to eat a piece of fruit with this kill.
Yes.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
you had a video earlier this week, some guy saying, why are humans so confused about what to eat?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have too much choice.
Too
Really, we
much.
have too much choice. And the choices that are sweet are cheaper and
Yeah,
more readily
yeah,
available. It's
yeah,
easier to go get a donut than it is to buy a steak and cook it.
yeah, yeah.
So it's convenience and it's our imaginations. It's just we just crave. Oh, that's another thing. Sugar creates a craving cycle.
Mm-hmm,
If you have sugar, you want sugar. If you
mm-hmm.
don't stop that, if you don't cease and desist with the sugar, you're going to continue to want it. And because
Exactly.
it's so readily available and in all kinds of great imaginary ways to consume, and you're just going to go off track. So
Mm-hmm,
we have been distracted. Our great brains, our minds have distracted us. And unfortunately, science has come to the conclusion that variety is where it's at in terms of diet, when it
mm-hmm.
truly is not.
Yeah, and that's where so many people are going wrong, is because when they go on that diet, the one thing they struggle with is hunger. The hunger is always the problem.
Yes, constant.
You ask anybody who goes on a restrictive diet, they bring their calories down. The first thing they'll say to you is, "I'm struggling because I'm really hungry." And then
Mhm.
when it comes to the weekend, they see their friends going out partying or drinking alcohol or whatever it is, ordering takeaway. They know they can't stick to that because they had that pressure and that guilt is kicking in.
Yes, and the
And that
cravings.
exactly, and that's what we call an addiction. That's how powerful an addiction is. You just can't,
It is. It is.
you know fully well that you just cannot maintain this for a long, long time, because if you could, you wouldn't have an addiction in the first place.
Exactly true. Very true. And it impacts the same centers in the brain that drugs like cocaine and heroin impact. You're
Mm,
feeding yourself a drug. You think it's benign because, well, you're still alive. You're not dead
mm,
yet, but you're
mm.
dying slowly enough so that when you get to be my age in the 70s, all kinds of illnesses crop up that were caused by a lifetime of improper eating.
100%. And who wants to lose weight and be miserable doing it?
Nobody, but unfortunately and ironically, that's the way people think they have to
Mm,
lose weight. I've got to starve myself. I've got to deny myself. I've got to be
exactly.
hungry, make
Yeah.
myself hungrier than I already am. And then they fail because when they stop the diet, in quotes, they go
Mm,
back to the old ways and
mm.
they gain the weight back.
And it just comes, like you mentioned, it just comes back on straight away really, very fast. So you've
Hmm.
lost all that weight, and then within a matter of a month or 2 months, you've gained all that weight back straight away. Straight away.
Hmm.
And it's very, very simple. You've only just basically shrunk the fat cell. The fat cell is going to expand again
It's still there. Yeah.
Once you give the body the crap that the body doesn't need, like insulin, and when insulin is chronically elevated, this is when your body just cannot burn fat. And this is what people just need to understand. There's a big difference between burning fat and losing weight.
Mhm.
Massive difference.
Yes. And fat does not impact insulin the way protein does.
No.
And it's not a big impact from protein, but we know that if you're eating more protein than fat, it's going to be turned into glycogen,
Exactly. And
glucose by the
exactly.
liver.
So we spoke at the very beginning about, again, how, like, if you guys are on a carnivore diet, again, what you need to do is don't focus too much on the protein. Protein is important. Protein is what our body needs. It's an essential macronutrient. It's an amino acid. It gives the body what it needs in order to build muscle. But if you need an energy source, guys, you need to make sure you do not go high protein. You need to give your body fats. So I just want to make sure before we end this podcast, if you guys are out there and you're really struggling and you're thinking, you know what, I might actually try the carnivore diet, my best advice to you is just make sure you're not going towards the lean sources of meat. Make sure if you're buying a ribeye, check the label. If it says 20 grams of protein on it and 20 grams of fat, well, then that's perfect. If it says 20 grams of protein on it and has zero fat on it, or probably 5% of fat on it, it's going to cause a problem. It's going to cause a
Yeah.
problem because
Very true.
you're honestly within 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to be getting on telling people, like, listen, I've tried the carnivore diet. It didn't work. I felt miserable. I felt crap. I just didn't feel good. I was constipated. Everything just felt really downhill. The reason why it felt downhill, guys, is because you weren't eating enough fat. And also, just before I leave, when we're on an animal-based diet and we're eating a lot of fats, especially fats, when it comes to your digestion, you are going to have no issues digesting your food. And you're also not going to have any issues getting rid of your food also. So you will not need to eat any fiber whatsoever. You only eat fiber when we're eating crap. So when we're eating processed food, when we're constipated. If we're constipated eating a high protein diet, then yes, vegetables can help to push that out. But you will not get that if you're eating high fats. High fats will actually help you get rid of that waste, no issues whatsoever.
Yes, that's very true. And on the carnivore diet, if you have a gallbladder issue, your body does get used to it. I do not have a gallbladder. I haven't had one for 25 years, and I started carnivore about 7 years ago in January. And it did not impact me, but it might impact some people.
Mm-hmm.
But little by little, your body gets used to it, and within about a month, you'll be able to digest those fats. They're just add them in slowly if you need to. But yes, you will get used to it because that is a very natural thing for your body.
Perfect. Any final thoughts before we let them go?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.